Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and welcome to another episode of the Power Hour.
How's it going, everybody?
Today's a little different than usual. Jim and I wanted to test out using Skype and recording it while talking to each other because we have, I'll just say we have some guests lined up that we're excited about, but we're trying to figure out the best way to do this virtually. And
Things are in the works!
Yeah, we want to give it the best quality possible, and we're actually trying to do it, I won't say professional, but a little more legit than we usually try shit in the past.
Brian, why did we start now?
Because we hit 600,000 views.
Yeah, fucking views.
Thank you guys for that. That's awesome, by the way, and we actually just hit 4,400 subscribers, so...
Today.
Yeah, pretty awesome. We always appreciate and love the support, guys, and... Jim and I have said it, we're definitely slow growing, but it doesn't change the fact we love every bit of support, so thank you all. That's really awesome.
Yep, we are growers, not showers.
Damn it, Jim. I was
Tell
saying
me
a
I'm wrong.
nice thing, and now you just have to turn it dirty.
What? You took it dirty. It could have meant anything.
Jim, what about all the ladies that listen to us?
Oh, I checked those analytics, Brian. I don't think we have to worry about that.
But, Jim, how will we ever grow our audience?
We got to get hotter.
So, yeah, if there's any issues with our audio quality, we'll apologize to begin with. But like I said, this is just a test run for us. So with that being said, Jim, I'll let you go ahead and rattle off our Patreon questions this week. And before he does that, it seems like I'm doing a whole lot of thanking. Can't thank you Patreons enough. We got, I think, a few more.
We got another one.
Yeah, so... Really appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Yep. So, we have one question this week because I put the thing out on Patreon late to ask for questions. So, from good old Dean, Game Whisperer. Gentlemen, if you could wipe one game franchise from history, what would it be and why? That's actually a really good question.
It's really good, and when I saw it this morning, god damn, I've been rattling my brain. Do you have your answer ready, Jim?
Yep.
All right, I'll let you go first then.
All right. I would like to see The Legend of Zelda get wiped from humanity. And the reason I would like to see that is it would be so interesting to see what the whole gaming and retro gaming landscape would be without it. Like, where would females be without Legend of Zelda? Because, I might be generalizing here a little bit, but I'd say they obsess over it a tiny bit, at least from the timelines I see.
Jim, I feel like there's two specific friends of ours here thinking about right now.
I mean, if you hear this and you think it's you, it might be you. That's all I'm saying. But it would just be interesting to see whether or not that they would glom onto a different franchise, or if they would be into gaming as much as at all, or would there be another franchise that would have taken over that whole adventure series kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say Gavelius would have taken over where, Legend of Zelda left off, but, maybe East would be more popular, shit like that. You never know.
Or Rygar.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit different, but god damn it. But yeah, I mean, I think of this even outside of trolling women like I love to do. It would be just cool to see what the overall history and development of video games would be without that franchise. Because contrary to what, Europeans like to say, the NES was pretty important. So, Legend of Zelda inspired some things.
So...
I'm on a roll tonight!
So that is one interesting one. Before I get to my answer, you saying that brings up one good point is, why does it seem, and I'm not saying Legend of Zelda is a girl game, I'm saying that does seem to, stack a lot, or attract a lot more females than a lot of other franchises. At least maybe it's just because the circles we follow in Twitter, it
Possibly.
seems that way. But I remember even in high school, there were some girls, if I talked about games, everyone knows Super Mario Brothers, but somehow Legend of Zelda always seemed to come up. So what do you think it is about that?
I mean, it's probably a lot of things. It's fantastical. It's, the kind of games that anyone can really get into. Not saying girls are worse at games, blah, 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 blah. But I think it's
Jim,
also...
you say that all the time.
Well, I mean, because it's true, but, that's neither here nor there. But either way, I think just because it's one of the earliest ones with, an overtly strong female, lead kind of character. I think a lot of people in our age group, I mean, they would have grown up, people grew up with, A Link to the Past and the original Legend of Zeldas, but I think even more in our age group and a couple years younger, their first one was probably Ocarina of Time, and Zelda was pretty badass in Ocarina, so it's like an early kind of gaming role model they could latch onto.
Yeah, because I was going to say, first two games, she didn't do much.
She was kind of a damsel in distress kind of deal.
Yeah, okay. Well, I kind of wish we would have talked before this because mine was actually going to be, well, it was going to be Legend of Zelda, and then I decided strictly for a same exact reasoning as Jim, the whole Super Mario Brothers franchise. That if that never existed, then that not only gets rid of Super Mario Brothers and all of those individual games, that gets rid of Mario Kart, that gets rid of Smash Brothers.
Ooh.
What would gaming look like then? Like, whenever people talk about fighting games, Smash Brothers series is always thrown in there with some of the top dogs, but if that was eliminated, would these later consoles that we talked about, would they have the survivability on all these other first-party games? Like, would Nintendo even be relevant without the Mario series? Because obviously, not saying that's the only great one, but it's the most well-known one and probably the best-selling of all time. So, just like Jim, it's not like I don't love Mario, but I would be interested to see what a alternate world would be where that never happened.
A lot of what-if scenarios here. It's like the, what was that one in Marvel where, the what-if universe?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they threw a bunch, like Juggernaut was somehow good, Xavier was bad. They threw a bunch of weird shit in that one, but yeah, I was trying to first think of, like, is there a series I hate that I would want to have wiped off? And even though we've talked about games we don't like, I don't really have a series like I loathe or hate for any specific reason, so I couldn't get rid of anything for that.
I don't know, Brian. Would you want to get rid of Rocket League so I shut up about it?
Well, that's not a series, Jim. That's an individual game.
Fair. I had no response.
I do. I really love that question, and it's one that I want to think on a little harder. Like, I do want to see if I want to think about if there is any series I truly, truly hate and maybe come back to it. But I love it, and I think, yeah, if in either Jim or I's scenarios, if you got rid of it, either one of those games, gaming would be significantly different.
It'll be a tickler stickler, that's for sure.
So, and who sent us that question?
That was Dean, Game Whisperer.
Thanks, bud. I like that question.
Also, I'd say the most straightforward of questions, gaming-wise, he's given us yet.
Yes, and it was actually fully a gaming question, so
yeah,
it's also good too.
So since I brought it up, you'll probably throw some abstract shit next time.
Yeah,
but we love him for it.
So thank you for that one.
And don't forget, everyone, if you want to submit a question to the Power Hour podcast, all you have to do is just become a $2 patron. www.patreon.com/DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, where for as little as $1, you can have access to exclusive content and early videos. For $2, you can ask questions for the Power Hour. And at the $5 tier, you can do game review suggestions and everything else before it.
You're getting pretty good at that sales pitch, Jim.
I am a fantastic whore.
Don't give yourself that much credit. You're still giving out $1 handies.
I'm a decent whore.
All right.
Look, people walk away happy, Brian. That's all that's important.
Do they?
Maybe a little bit of shame. It's probably some shame.
All right. So then the next question, I guess this didn't really come from Patreon, or did it?
I should say no to sell the Patreon more, or say yes, but nah, it didn't come from Patreon. It's from one of our buddies.
Yeah. So our good buddy Jason, we talk games with him a lot.
Yeah. So either pay us to answer your questions or know us in real life.
Yeah. So this one I can read off. It's which title screen and music combo is the best. So I just assume he means just strictly title screen music. That's
right.
how I'm taking that.
Yeah. Boot up screen, start screen, whatever you want to call it.
So another really good one, because I could name multiples, but I think my two will probably surprise you, Jim, because they're not exactly series or games that I absolutely love.
Okay.
Said I love, but the first one, when I think retro, one of the title screens that always stuck out to me was Street Fighter 2. that opening.
Yep.
Because that whole game has so many good tracks, I just, for some reason, that stuck out. I'm not going to sit here and try and say it was one of the best, but it's pretty memorable.
It's a good track. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can kind of toss it up to any of them, but the Halo series, especially Halo 1, that...
Yeah, just a spinning mechanical Halo in space and shit like that.
Yeah. And when it got to like 4, I mean, they straight up gave you like a 9-minute track loop. It's actually crazy to listen to.
Yeah.
So I was always just super impressed with what they spit out for that. And yeah, like I said, it's not series I'm like in love with, but man, those things kicked ass. And I know Jim and I will both leave out a shit ton of ones, but those are the first two that came to my head.
All right. For me, like the obvious one for me is going to be the original Sonic the Hedgehog. Just him popping up on screen, that fantastic quick little jingle, the attitude with the waving the finger and all that. Like, it's timeless and it's iconic. So it's obviously one of the best ones ever made. And I guess for like a random nostalgic one, I'm going to go with Evander Holyfield boxing on the Genesis. Because it's got like, the music itself sounds like something that would be in like, yeah, you could say mid-tier boxing organization that wound up on TV in the early 90s. And then you had the old, every time you hit a menu option, he's punching it out as a screen. So it's got a nice little scaling effect as it's going back out and coming back in.
Interesting.
So
not shocked that you only chose Genesis, but
well, obviously. But I mean, you could always go with Super Mario 64 and the fact you can play with his face.
Yeah, but it's not meant to be how much fun can you have. It's strictly music.
Yeah, you know, it's good music in the background too while you're playing with the face. Gives you a reason to listen to the track more.
But that wouldn't be one of the best.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's up there.
So I do like this one. And similar, I want to maybe eventually in the future come back and after I think about other games, because there's a track for a game that's actually a newer game and it's a horror theme that's actually super creepy. And so I just want to come back to that in the future. So Jason, thanks for sending us that, bud. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Before we move on to our topics, Jim, I just realized since we're doing things all willy-nilly today, we forgot to talk what beers we're drinking. So
I thought we were going to save that for when we were doing the beer topics.
Nah, I mean we're sliding in those DMs right now, Jim. So right now I am drinking the Victory Prima Pils. And if you know us, you know we're from PA. Victory is one of the more famous breweries from PA. And this is debatably their easiest drinking beer they have. So there's not a ton of information on this. I'm not going to give a big spiel like Jim does. But 5.3%. And yeah, if anyone has ever had a Pilsner before, these things are real easy to drink. And I'm actually almost done this one already. So what is Jim drinking?
I am cleaning out some beers from my fridge. So
God.
It's not all bad.
It better not be a seltzer.
No, there's no seltzer. So actually the last time I drank one of them, it must have been old and it like tore apart the back of my throat as it was going down. Like I only took like 2 sips and I like hurt for a week. So that was alarming. But I got 2 Trogs beers I'm going with. So the first one that I'm drinking right now is their Perpetual IPA, which comes in at 7.5% alcohol and a respectable 85 IBUs. At Trogs, artisanal meets mechanical in a state of IPA we call Perpetual. Cycling through our hopback vessel and dry hopping method, this bold imperial ale emerges rife with sticky citrus and pine bomb and tropical fruit. So that's the first one I'm drinking. Second one is their cherry chocolate stout, which I've drunk on the podcast before. Comes in at 7.3% alcohol, so right along the same lines. Doesn't give IBUs, but close your eyes. Let's think about cherries. Big, vibrant, red Balatin? God
damn it. This is the second time you're reading that and you could never take the time to just learn a word.
Right, that means I would have done some prep.
Fuck.
They're sweet, they're tart, they're juicy. Now wrap those thoughts in a roasty, warm chocolate stout and drizzle with vanilla. It was this cherry cordial daydream that set our brewers on the path to scratch number 307. And lo and behold, dreams do come true. And I also have a Rolling Rock.
Okay. Well, that's interesting combo.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to sit well tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I've been drinking most of today.
So. No, well.
So beer topics, we don't have many. The first one is pretty recurring. We've been following this for a while now. If you've been following our podcast or seen our segments, you know Jim has a special place in his heart for Stone Brewing.
Buddy.
And if you're watching the segment, I'm going to link below the previous segments and podcasts. We've talked about this. Essentially, Stone made an attempt to prevent Miller Coors from selling Keystone Light in their new can design, which basically says Stone. Stone Brewing saying, hey, you're going to start making people confused about whose is who. And it was a big deal because they're basically trying to sue them. Surprise, surprise. And this article comes to us from brewbound.com. As of March 28th, a federal judge denied Stone's motion for a preliminary injunction and basically just dismissed this claim.
Oh, nice. Because you had sent me, it was before that, so outdated, but it was as of 37 minutes ago on the date that you sent it. So, Stone was saying that in our fight to protect our name, reputation, and brand integrity, the judge they confirmed their preliminary claim. So I guess they got through the preliminary claim part, and then it went a little deeper in, and then the judge is like, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, it's interesting. So U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez probably, denied Stone's motions. He wrote that the craft brewery's trademark infringing claim is moderately strong and said the Stone trademark is indisputable with protectable ownership. But still, he found that Stone was hard-pressed to prove it would suffer irreparable harm by not receiving a preliminary injunction. So he's kind of acknowledging that I guess there is an issue with the Stone thing, but...
So there's a case, but, I mean, he's not going to stop Keystone from being a company.
Essentially, yes.
All right.
But that's very interesting.
So it's in the works.
So,
definitely
yeah,
in the works.
I guess it could be...
Because he threw out their Keystone's initial defense. So, yeah, I mean, I guess he feels there's a case there, but not strong enough in one way. It might be interesting to... Well, we're going to follow it anyway, but...
Jim, your favorite guy, Dominic Engels, he says, Miller Coors has made hundreds of millions of dollars from rebranding Keystone in a way that infringes on our trademark. It has also hurt Stone and our brand. We look forward to presenting this evidence to court at the trial. Do you really think they made hundreds of millions since rebranding this Keystone? I'm sure Keystone sells well, but hundreds of millions? Does that seem a little high to you?
I mean, if there's millions of me's out there, they just might.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm not thinking of...
No, I mean, I know what you're getting at here. And yeah, like, Keystone's in that lower shit tier beer market, and it's always fighting against, like, Natty and Busch. So...
And when you're selling cases of 70 for like $40,
yeah,
are you making hundreds of millions of dollars? And are you especially and that claim also suggests that they're making that solely on the fact that they're infringing upon the Stone name. Like that's the reason they're selling it.
That's where I think their injunction went wrong, is because they're so far up their ass. They're like, oh, they took this from us and they're off our name. It's like easy there.
Yeah,
like it's not like they were the 6th largest brewery in America overnight. Like it took time.
Yeah, and also
Keystone was out first.
Anyone who really drinks beer, anyone who drinks Stone beer and drinks it seriously, chances are probably isn't getting Keystone Light and can tell the difference between the cans and the very distinctive Stone bottles and cans they sell.
I just kind of hope and want to live in a world where there's some guy walking through the beer aisle at Acme, and he comes across a 6-pack of Stone Brewing, and he's like, my Keystones look different. But then he just buys it anyway because it says Stone on there, and then he takes that first sip, and he's just like, what is this?
Yeah. See, me, the way I'd respond if I was Stone Brewing, turn around and make a blue can that says Stone, and put that out there. That's how you fucking come back. Dominic Engels, if you need to send me some money and use that idea, go right ahead.
Yeah, send me some too for inspiring Brian to think of that.
No.
Shut up.
Send Jim a case of Keystone.
I will also accept this.
So we'll keep following up with it. And if anybody, I know last time we actually had, I don't know if it was an actual lawyer or someone who seemed to be up on the probability of their like how strong of a case they had. So if anyone has any legal notions of this or more insight, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, definitely, please. Yeah, we would love to have a lawyer on to talk about this with us.
Yeah. So, moving on, this is just a quick detour before we get on everything else. I previously did a kind of marathon review of Irish beers on St. Paddy's Day. Some of you guys were following. I was trying to get it on Twitter and Instagram. I came up with the idea that morning, so it wasn't fully planned out, I'll say. But I am going to be doing, not all in one day, but a similar kind of event beer reviewing, and it's tied around Game of Thrones. Because Omegang, who makes absolutely delicious beers, has specialty Game of Thrones beers, and they're all, as I'm holding up to the camera, I'll do my best to show the labels, but they're all these really big beers, and they're some crazy goddamn flavors. But basically, every Sunday with every new episode, since it's a season finale, I'm going to review the beers, put it up on our site. Links are below for our site. So if you're interested in seeing what I think about them, please make sure you follow us. I'm sure we'll throw it up on Twitter and Instagram. But yeah, they're all pretty... I'm really interested in some of these. They're all really strong beers too. So
cool.
Wanted to throw that out there.
That sounds like a cool little project for you.
Yeah, that's why I was asking you if you watch that show.
Nah, I'm not good with that.
Yeah.
I'm busy with other things, like something we'll get to later.
So.
Foreshadowing.
Yes. So, Jim, obviously I put this link up here, and a lot of gamers have been talking about this because this article is from March 25th. So, unfortunately, we weren't able to get to it earlier, but once again, Jim and I, local to Philly, and it looks like Comcast is going to spend $50 million in South Philly to build our nation's first gaming arena.
For esports.
Yeah, and you know what? I was talking to people I work with who really aren't into gaming, but gave me an interesting perspective that's like, well, Philly's been known to be the first of a lot of shit, and the location is interesting. I don't know if it's ideal, but it's, hey, it's another, I think, interesting. I don't know if it's good for the city, but it was inevitable to come to the States because I think we always try to do this, and especially with the prevalence of esports in general. And we talked about that one article that mentioned gaming in the Olympics in the future, potentially, and all these other things. Yeah, it was bound to happen, and I think it's kind of cool it's coming here, but I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
Well, the first thing I'm thinking of is the goddamn location, because for obviously those out there who don't know, all of Philly's sports complexes, except for our soccer team, are all located in the same, 3 to 4 mile area. We call it our sports complex. So we have our Wells Fargo Center, which has the Sixers and Flyers. We have Lincoln Financial, which has the Eagles. And we have Citizens Bank, which has the Phillies. And then in one intersection, one of the most main intersections, there's this, big bar setup called Xfinity Live that has a bunch of bars, big open area. And that's always packed. And they're putting this next to that Xfinity Live. So, first thing in my head is, oh good, less parking. And it's going to be a 3,000-seat arena, which I think is, I don't know, my initial thing is to say that's overreaching, but...
That's not that many.
It's not that many, and like what you said, Philly's...
And Jim, sorry.
Philly, what?
So I just want to interrupt, just so we're clear. It's 3,500.
3,500. So, I apologize. But... Philly tends to really glom on and hold dear to their local teams and shit like that. So, even though it's something new, it's something that they'll still probably have enough people go out and support and crap like that. And, I mean, people will always find a reason to tailgate something or other. So, if they hear that there's, a championship going on, say Philly's team, whatever, the Philly Fusion, I think they're called, say they make it to the finals of, like, Overwatch or Dota or whatever the hell they play, then people would probably show up for it. I mean, we've had a lacrosse team for friggin' ever, and when arena football was a thing, we had one of the best franchises in the whole damn thing, so... I just think it's a smart city to try it out in, because like all the major metropolitan ones, like say New York or I wouldn't say LA, but like all the major ones like that, like if we have a thing that's ours, we hold on to it dearly and we support it. So
yeah,
and it's also, you also see, like, the other week I was over at my parents' house and they just left ABC on, and it's like the middle of a Sunday and there's an esports tournament going on. I'm like, what the hell?
That's, you know what? And that's a thing that I think of the implications of that. Like, the norm of esports, and big surprise, two guys who have a site about beer and games, we're huge gamers, but we're not into the esports thing. And it's going to become more and more of just the norm. Like, you will see it on TV more, and people used to laugh. It's like, what kind of... You can't make a living playing games, and that's obviously between YouTube and now legit esports, you can.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess my problem always comes down to calling that a sport, but that's a philosophical thing, because you could call darts a sport.
We talked about it before.
Yeah. But, I mean, hey, you know what? I'm happy it's coming to Philly. I don't necessarily see how it could be bad for us.
We'll definitely probably at least once check it out.
Oh,
I tried to reach out to them on, Twitter about, hey, how about having some local, Philly internet game people with decent followings, maybe give us a little show around or something. Deaf ears.
Of course. Yeah,
we're not that big. We're not the nerd. If AVGN did, I'm sure he'd get a response.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, a lot of you guys have already sounded off, especially on Twitter, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen other videos and might be tired talking about it, but if you're fans of ours or friends of ours, let us know what you guys think, because instead, I think it's futile to be like, it's stupid to build arenas, period. Like I said, that's coming no matter what. Unless all of a sudden people are going to stop gaming altogether, esports is where it's at right now, and I think the number one game is probably going to be Overwatch for that shit. And it's going to be for a while.
That or Fortnite.
That's what I meant. I meant Fortnite, not Overwatch. I mean, Overwatch still is
It's still
big.
up there. Yeah.
Yeah, but Fortnite is number one for sure. So, all right, Jim. This next one, I'm not you. It's all you. And while you start to explain it, I'm going to go grab my other beer.
All right. So, let me bring the article back up because it's been a little while. But this comes to us from Crunchyroll, which, for all you weebs out there, you know exactly what that is. And frustrated with content restrictions, Senran Kagura producer leaves Marvelous. So, I've never played a Senran Kagura game. I forget if it's like a beat 'em up or like some kind of fighting game. I'm not so sure, but people love the games, and it's actually, from everyone I talk to, it's games that are like really fun to actually play. But it's known for just being total fan service, big booby anime waifu girlfriend kind of deal. So a big controversy going around lately is the fact that, especially on PlayStation and all their consoles, they've been really localizing and like censoring the hell out of stuff. And I actually had a little back and forth with people on Twitter, because I was just like, look, don't have upskirt underage girls in your games. If you want your game to sell more, take that shit out. So, but these people are trying to say basically that it's their artistic vision, which, okay, different culture, I get it. And
yeah, so, Jim, stop being a fascist.
Yeah, stop being a fascist. Stop having the underage girls show their panties. I know, I'm a pig. So,
yeah, what's wrong with you?
Some of his final comments are, I'm a game fan at heart. I tell dirty jokes, make irresponsible comments, but I'll work my hardest to make games. And he says he's going to be making different projects and crap like that. So, So even though he's after he's completely done at Marvelous, Takai plans to continue his existence as the huge boobs producer. So I'm glad that's the hill he's dying on. Which, I mean, tits, anime, hentai, whatever. I don't care. Like what you like. Why does it have to be under? Why do you have to defend underage shit?
Okay, so
and I mean, I'll just say right here, like Senran Kagura and this article itself doesn't get into the whole underage thing. But that's just like the avenue I can't not go down when I see shit like this.
So you might have said at the beginning, what is the game? What do you actually do in the game?
You know what? Let me look that up real quick because I've never played any of them.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Seeing the style,
it's a long-running series that people really do love, though.
But you know what? Like, so by the way, I don't know if you mentioned this. We'll have the link below. It's crunchyroll.com. For me, this style, if you look, and if you're listening to a segment, I'm going to put the picture that's in this article. When I see this style, automatically I'm like, it doesn't matter what the type of game it is. I don't, like, anime in general gives me zero incentive to go and play it. Like, anime of this style, I should say. So, yeah, I've never, like, I see this, and I see the name, and I'm like, cool, something I'm never going to look at. And Jim is a little bit more in that realm.
I used to be, but I've been out of it for a while. Basically, I was into like Adult Swim in the mid-2000s like everyone else was in Toonami, but ever since those days, I've been out of the game. Yeah, I'm finding a lot of body pillows.
Well, to Jim's point, though, okay, number one, anytime I see anime, it's girls with eyes way too big for their head and boobs that are just unrealistically big.
Let's not go off into boobs here. The boobs are fine.
I'm just saying that's a trademark. Like that, it is what it is. So if the issue is, and once again, Jim, if you said it, I'm sorry. If the issue really is just the fact that it's boobs, that's silly.
Well, the issue for the developer is the fact that he keeps getting censored. So he's just kind of like, fuck it, I'm out kind of deal.
And essentially it sounded like you were saying the issue is that they're censoring him because he's doing this and it's like big boobs and like objectifying underage girls.
Well, not for this series. Like I should.
Oh, okay.
Like it's not in this series. It's just the reason I brought this article up mainly is because every time you get into these arguments about, you know, what's censorship, what's, you know, impeding on people's art, it always seems to, like, it always devolves into this argument about lolicon shit, which, if you don't know, I assume you don't know what lolicon is. It's basically...
No idea.
It's like, it's underage looking girls who are like of a petite stature. I think that's what like the exact translation is. But it always turns into people beating off to like 13-year-old girls, but they say it's okay because in story they're 4,000.
But so, hold on.
I'm going to get so much hate for this segment.
No, my eyes. I mean, if you were next to me, I'm like scrunching my face. So it's a 4,000. I know you're exaggerating, but
right.
4,000-year-old girl, but depicted like she's a 13-year-old.
Right.
So it's like kind of a sick way to get around. Like you're just trying to appease like perverts who like that shit.
Kind of, and if like a lot the big argument that you'll see a lot is people just going, and I know they do it as like a trolley meme too, is just going, it's just cartoons, bro. Would you rather them have cartoons to look at and beat off to, or would you rather them try to fill their needs elsewhere? Which,
I mean,
I guess there's something to that, but I don't want either one of them either. Yeah.
But I'm also someone who would be for, yeah.
Right. I'm like, we're normal, so we don't have this problem.
I would go more extreme and say if you identify those people, then they don't get to live anymore. But I'm more extreme with that. So
right, and that's also probably the being fathers of daughters in us too. So
yeah,
definitely doesn't help there.
That's fucked up. I mean,
like we obviously have a bias when it comes to this, and like we don't live in Japan, so we don't know the culture. Blah 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 blah. We're not otakus or anything like that. But I don't know. It doesn't pass the smell test for me.
None of it does. I mean, there's enough shit out there that. Like why? Whatever. Yeah, we're never gonna break that barrier. That's disturbing on many levels, and yeah, trying to defend it is its own weird thing. But okay.
Yeah. So basically, when this guy Takai left, or he was saying that recent regulations, particularly on consoles, have made his job tougher. And whenever everyone brings this up, it's always the PS4. So he knows that there's people who want this type of content, and he told Famitsu he feels that variety comes about as a good result for the whole industry. Okay. Something snapped in him one day when he saw how easily regulation was increasing, though, and he worries about the chilling effects this trend may end up having. Now, I'm using a bad example of Senran Kagura, but it's one of the more well-known series that are, like, kind of, for pervy, big boobs, whatever. So, but it's just still the thing of, like, you see articles from all these different little game companies who, like, put out these big diatribes about how their art's being impeded and how they're being censored and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And it comes down to underage panty shots that they just had to cover up.
Yeah, and here's the other thing.
And that's where I go, well, fuck the whole thing. It's all ruined now.
Yeah, or, if you're from Japan and that's your culture, that's cool. But that doesn't mean you are allowed to do it here. So do your shit over there. If that's cool there, do it there, but just don't bring it here.
I have no problem with pervy games. I have no problem with cartoon porn. I've tasted the rainbow. But just don't make it underage. And don't bitch about having to censor underage shit. That's all I ask.
Oh, man. See? This is the problem. Too many soft people in the world, Jim.
I guess. And then they're going to call us soft. I get it now. Damn it.
So.
I'll trample all over that one. Shit.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you guys think, if you're more familiar, or what your thoughts are on this. One thing that does bring me to, and we didn't get to talk about, and I was going to throw it on here, and this is kind of a perfect segue to it. We talked briefly about, like, Sonya Blade now, like, being Ronda Rousey in the next Mortal Kombat. Yep. And did you notice her, Cassie, it looked like most of the females.
A little less ample?
Well, forget ample, but, like, I look back at MK9 and 10, and yes, there were some women like Melina who's always, like, really scantily clad, or, like, showing off cleavage or whatever. Like, part of it is, like, you have ultra muscular sexualized characters. They are just plain as day and absolutely no level of that. Like, is that a big push now for everything in gaming?
I mean, it could be, or
was it just coincidence? I don't know.
It could be a little bit of both. It could just be them trying to have. I mean, it's not like the games do really well. So, but also,
you
companies
can't tell
always
me, like,
want
they're
more.
doing that to avoid censorship when you have a dude, like, ripping a guy from his dick up to his neck in half. Like,
well, yeah, that's also when you get that classic argument that the rest of the world has for us, where it's like, so you have a problem with tits, but you'll allow this, blatant violence to go on.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a case to be made there. I think the only reason that I don't have as big a problem with it, like, as I just said, some cartoon titties. I'm fine with some cartoon titties. But I guess the only reason I don't have a huge problem with it is it's not like the entire series was based around that.
No, for sure. It wasn't.
Right. So, like Katana Melina, even as far back as Mortal Kombat 2, scantily clad, but it wasn't like, oh my god, they're popping out, blah, 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 blah. So, if they're going in that direction, it makes sense in universe. I'm fine with it. I could be hypocritical here, but whatever. But did I have a problem with them bringing the whole big titty models back? Of course not. Of course I would probably enjoy that more. But it's not going to make me not buy the game. I don't think it has as big of an impact as I guess people want to say along the, they're censoring themselves or they're cucking to try and make more money kind of deal like that, to be like more mass market appeal. It's not like it's going to not be an M-rated game because they covered up the tits a little more.
And I guess before I said that, I now that I'm thinking about it as you're talking, part of it could also be if Ronda Rousey was used as a model, maybe part of her thing was like, well, you're not going to give me a character who looks like that. So who knows what's behind the scenes? I'm more thinking strictly of the Sonya Blade character because I will say
Zelina Vega made a damn fine looking Jade. Woo.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But that's one of those ones I don't care either way. But I felt like that was an interesting, once again, segue from what we were just talking about. Like, is that a sign of more of these games going to be censored? Because you and I talked, as we're going through this Resident Evil month. I just finished Revelations, and there are some really stupid, like, it's a known thing that some of the outfits that girls and sometimes guys too wear. But if you've ever played that game, and we'll get to it in the review, all I can say is there's a scuba suit that's a wetsuit.
Right.
And for some reason, this one chick has an entire leg just off. It's like just to show her leg. I don't know. It's just fucking goofy.
Some could say it isn't practical.
It's just like, yeah, it just didn't make sense. I don't know.
Yeah, that was definitely, I mean, that was just a fan service deal. But I was like, oh, look at the stems on this lace.
But yeah, it is what it is. So once again, let us know what you think about that. And Jim, you, once again, you put another one. This is a unique one.
Okay, so the reason I put this on here, because this can be a really quick topic. Probably not even worth putting up as a separate, video. But, so, Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments are now penalizing players who stink too bad.
Dude, number one, I legit love this, Jim. So this is something that makes me laugh because no shit, like, I hate to be that person that keeps perpetuating the idea that nerds are overweight and stinky and shit like that, but we've been to gaming conventions, and Jim, what would you say most of the clientele are?
Whew! Man, when we went to too many games, and we mentioned this before in our little recap of it, by the time we got to like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, holy shit, it was just BO in there.
Yeah, it's amazing. As mainstream as gaming has gotten, I wish, cleaning your body got to those people. Like I wish that could translate in with the mainstream. Like it's amazing. There's an odor. Like I don't know how else to describe it. For anyone who's watching, if you've been to these things, you know what we're talking about. So I really can't blame Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments for doing this.
I mean, it's really funny. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh's been around for friggin', I think, since like 2001, maybe like 99, turn of the century kind of deal. And I've been to shitload of HeroClix tournaments. I've been to some Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments. I've been to Magic tournaments. I'll say by far the Magic tournaments were the most smelly. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Was not fresh either. And I was never on like the super high competitive level, so I never had to deal with that. But the quote from the article from comicbook.com says, "This is a new section requiring all persons attending a tournament to be clean and wear clean clothing. I love that has to be called out. If you or your clothing is excessively dirty or bad smelling, you can be penalized." It doesn't say what the penalties are going to be. That might be a tournament kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I just love that has to be written somewhere.
So I'm trying to read through real quick.
And it's not like it's kids who are at these top tier tournaments.
So in the article, I wish they would have had some people defending it. It's just more people bashing it and saying, like, agreeing with it. Please, if somebody out there can defend people who do this, I would love to hear it.
All right, Brian. Here you go.
Go ahead.
Devil's advocate. Competitive edge. Because if you smell like goddamn horse shit, it's going to be stinking. It's going to be wafting over to the other player. You might even put a fan behind you to blow it over more. Let's just say you want to throw the other guy off their game. Might not be the worst way in the world to do it.
So, Jim, as someone who's never done Yu-Gi-Oh!, but as someone who's done Jiu-Jitsu for a long time, I can tell you it could be a thing in Jiu-Jitsu where guys wouldn't wash their shorts and would get near you and they would legit stink and that would fuck you up. I don't imagine your quote-unquote strategy for Yu-Gi-Oh! Being fucked up by someone's smell.
I'm just saying, you need to be on your game with Yu-Gi-Oh! Split-second decision-making, Brian.
Is it really split-second, Jim?
Split-second. You have instantaneous spells, traps, even monster summons, Brian. So if you mistime your thing, that could end your game in one turn right there.
Well, Jim, you know what I say to that then?
Some could call it the card version of Jiu-Jitsu.
No, they wouldn't.
I think they would after this.
And you know what I would say if that was the case?
What?
If this bothers you, don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! And furthermore, don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Either way. Because
it's a good game.
At this day and age, just play it online.
It's never... Well, actually, the mobile games are pretty good.
So there you go. I just won. Boom. Thank you. I'll take my bow.
Fine, play Jiu-Jitsu online.
I'll take my bow. Ugh. So...
But I just had to read the headline that legitimately says, Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments are now penalizing players who stink
too bad. I love it. I'm cool with that. Don't sugarcoat that shit. All right, so Jim also provided us, and once again, the link will be below. Okay. I'm going to try to make this fast. Click on the link. It's interesting to watch. But
it's a YouTube video. It's about 20 minutes long, and it's basically the hangar, the first level of the original Doom. After 21 years, a new world record has been set in speedrunning. The old record was 9 seconds. The new record is 8 seconds. And you might think to yourself, well, I mean, that's a second. How interesting could it be? I'll tell you, as a guy who doesn't give a shit about speedrunning, those 20 minutes flew by. So that could be credit to the video maker himself, but like just like the strategy and the mechanics behind like what everyone did and the progression of people tying the record and the different modes that they did it, it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, that's... And once again, I'm like you. I equate this to the same people who like finding glitches, like finding whatever. It's interesting if you like speedrunning. Speedrunning does zero for me. It obviously defeats the whole purpose of the game, but cool on that guy for beating that record.
I mean, there is something impressive about having that level of obsession over something. Like, I could never imagine sitting there. Like, the guy who beat the record spent a full year doing it, and he did at least 50,000 tries.
But that's my point. Like,
that's like a level of like, I mean, this is going to sound bad, but that's a level of autism I can't even imagine. Like, I can't like imagine just sitting there and doing the same thing like that over and over again this in the course of like perfection.
And you and I have talked about it. We were both really obsessive for a while with getting Xbox achievements.
Yeah.
And man, I'm sure PS trophies are similar. There are ones that are just so ridiculous. And I still go back to the one that was most ridiculous for me, which was Dead Rising. Mm-hmm. You had to kill 50,000 zombies. And basically, you just had to keep getting a car, running over, let's be generous and say 3,000 at a time before the car would break, go back, get another one. And because I was like, I need to get all the achievements, I did that. And it took me way too long. Didn't have fun doing that because I was driving towards such a singular goal that I just don't see like and once again, like Jim said, who knows what's in this guy's mind. I just don't see how you have fun doing something that repetitive over and over. If you're doing it to like win a prize, and this guy set a world record, but what the fuck's a world record in Doom hangar level mean? Like, it doesn't mean much.
It's bragging rights.
But to who? Even the gamers, like me and you are gamers. I hear that,
and
the most
has
you
its
get
scene.
out of me
it has
is,
its scene. That's what it is.
I know, but like honestly, me and you, I call us pretty intense gamers. You heard this. If you met the guy, you'd be like, cool. Like, what else do you play? Like, it would go like, okay, so you perfected 8 seconds of a game. What else do you play? Like, the conversation's done. I don't know. It's just,
I mean, like, the guy who did it was like a speedrunning legend too, and like he only picked up Doom recently, so it's not like he worked at it for years and years and years. But it's cool to see, a record that stood for 21 years, and in video games, that's a fucking eternity. So
yeah,
it's crazy that record lasted so long. It's crazy what these people went through who beat the record did. So it's a cool article or a cool video.
And, more and more, I think as time goes on, people will look for like more obscure games and try and do see what the record is and just try and beat them. Because it's like, why not? Like you have some really goddamn obscure games. You in theory could be like, I want to beat the record for Hotel Mario.
That could be mine. I could do it.
It could.
I can make it my life's work.
Yeah. So let us know what you think, guys. Once again,
I do want to say before we move on that I kind of feel bad for these guys too, because even in the video they talked about how like Doom speed running in the whole speed running sphere is not really cared about that much. So a dude spent like a whole year and like all of his time doing something that even in its own sphere, people are like, oh, okay.
Well, see, my one problem, not saying I could ever do it, but I watched that Doom run, and I'm like, he kind of just went a straight path, tilted at an angle.
I mean,
and I know there's a lot more to that. I'm simplifying it to a very high degree.
right.
But when I watch people speed run, like, fuck it, Super Mario Brothers, Castlevania, and it's like you're timing the perfect jumps, even though most of them are coded or whatever. That's where I'm like, that's impressive because you're like, if you miss a beat one time, you're done. And this, yes, if you miss a beat, you don't get the 8-second record, but it's for a total of 8 seconds. Whereas, you're going through Castlevania, you're trying to beat the whole game. We've talked about like them speed runners can beat all of Castlevania in some crazy amount of time, like 8 minutes or 10 minutes. It's like, how the fuck do you do that and be that perfect for an entire game? And like, especially when they do it live, like that's more impressive to me versus one level of a game where it's a kind of a straight diagonal line to the end.
Yeah, either way, it's just a level of dedication I could never, ever imagine.
Okay. So, yeah, let us know what you think. Like I said, I think other speedruns are more impressive, but it is just cool from a sense of we obviously love Doom, and Doom may come back up in a little bit.
Yep.
So, let us know.
Yep, sorry, go ahead.
So, let us know what you guys think.
Yep. So while we're keeping on that, we're going to keep with the YouTube links below. And the next one is going to be blast processing. It's, in a way, actually real. And this comes to us from Digital Foundry. And basically, it's another video. It's about 10 minutes long. Not as interesting, I'll say, because it's a interview with a guy who kind of figured it out. But it's cool because blast processing, we all kind of know, was always a marketing term, but it's basically what it comes down to is the Genesis, off the top of my head, I think it has like 256 color palette, and it can display 64 simultaneously. I'm probably butchering those numbers, but the blast part of the graphics processor can push beyond its normal limits and what it can show. So if you do like a still image, you can put like all the colors on there for like this incredible level of detail for like one still image. So in the video itself, it shows you like these portraits that people made of the guy from Digital Foundry doing some shit, or like a scene out of Shenmue. And it looks really impressive coming from a Genesis. So it's cool how they kind of justify how like blast processing before was talking about that glitch and saying processor, and a marketing guy went, blast processing. There you go.
Yeah, so that, my understanding, and I did not watch the video before we started this, but my understanding was it was a marketing thing that they just, they tagged on instead of trying to give the technical specs. They're like, we'll just call it blast processing. And, the nerd did a really good job talking about the history of that. But that's what essentially, I think he said, like someone from a Sega rep was essentially like, yeah, it's not really a real thing. It was a marketing term more than anything else.
Right. Now, I mean, it does have a faster processor than especially the NES would at first went against, and then the Super NES even. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing that really wasn't real, but it's also kind of real. So long story short, it's completely 100% real. It does what Nintendo don't.
Yeah, it beat the NES, but I mean, Super NES came along, and it's
I was going to say it didn't beat the NES either.
I feel like, I mean, in historical sense,
it beat Nintendo for a little while.
Yeah, it beat NES and Nintendo in back in the day for sure. Everyone jumped to the Genesis, but historically,
right? Yeah,
it's left in the dust.
Easy with the left in the dust.
Listen, as much shit as I give you for Genesis, I defend a lot of the Genesis, and I have my feelings about Nintendo in general, but let's be honest, Jim. In the future, the NES is going to always be levels above people's mind than the Genesis. Not calling the Genesis it's not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying be honest. Fuck.
No.
So, yeah. Let us know what you guys think about that.
Right, but it was bigger in Brazil.
Because that matters.
And the United Kingdom, because that matters too.
They're still playing with their ZX Spectrums. I'll never say Zed.
I know they're poor beaten down children. That's what it is. God, I love Tron the UK. I goddamn love it.
Poor UK. They're just a little island gem.
Probably they're going to be on their own soon. Let's get political.
All right. So, we're going to be Doom-centric here for the next two topics.
Shit, we are.
First one, this is why I said when we were talking about the Doom speedrun, it ties into things we're talking about. So I just had a general, and I might throw this out because I always have an issue. The way my brain works, and Jim has known this since college, that I have an obsession with lists, categorizing, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
It's true.
And Doom is one of those games I've seen multiple times vehemently put in lists that it's absolutely a horror game, and then it's absolutely not a horror game. It's just an FPS action game. My question to you, Jim, not trying to say from an expert standpoint, where do you stand? Because for me, I get the idea of why it's horror, because you're seeing gruesome body parts everywhere. You're killing these demons. The fact that you're in hell, like there's so many aspects. It's like makes sense. It's horror, but I guess when I think of horror games, obviously my mind goes to either the old, really old style point and click, first person, whatever, or straight survival horror. Because there's no point in that game where I feel like, oh man, I can't handle these big monsters. You're like, no, I'm mowing all these motherfuckers down. So I'm one of those where it's like, I really don't consider it a horror game, but I can understand why some people would. So what do you think?
I'm in the boat of I don't consider it horror. And the reason I don't, even besides the, now I will say maybe like the Jaguar version because there's no music. I think the music kind of takes away from the horror elements because, yeah, it's just speed metal that they, digitized. So I think that kind of changes on some level the feel of it from being straight up horror, even though it's gory and it's got the hell monsters and all that stuff. But my real reason for it is just comparing games. So when I grew up, I had Doom, and I had Doom 2, and I had Quake 2. Quake 2, and people kind of shit on Quake 2, but for being different, but Quake 2 legit disturbed me as a kid. Like, it had a really, like, especially the opening prison levels and stuff like that. Like, it was just gory, and people were being tortured. You had the screams of horror and blood and guts in the backgrounds. People just, begging you to kill them that are strapped to walls. Whereas Doom was just like, running through, killing everything. So I just think Doom never had the atmosphere. Like, you could get a jump scare here and there from, like, the invisible ghouls or stuff like that, but in the grand scheme... Or Pinky, yes. But, even with, like, the hellish landscape, I never felt like... I was just like, oh, this looks cool and brutal. I was never like, oh, I'm scared now. Whereas, like, I guess the more dynamic lighting and the mood and setting of, like, other games, even, like I said, FPSs like Quake 2, really got to me.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Doom 3, I would absolutely say is a horror game.
Which I never played.
Yeah, so that one was so reliant on, like, shadows and dark corners, and you have to use your flashlight, and just generally creepy. But then, with the Doom remake... It's an amazing game, but similarly, I would never call that a horror game. And it's gruesome, and the blood and gore is just tenfold.
Oh, yeah.
Done in much better pictures. But, yeah, it's got that same metal soundtrack. I mean, I would be more inclined to almost be like, it's kind of sci-fi-ish. But it's, there's nothing, like, scary or, like, even atmospherically. I mean, yes, you are looking at bodies being thrown everywhere and whatever, but... Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was never scared by the new Doom, but, I mean, fucking loved it.
Yeah. But so, okay, so me and you are on the same page with that. Once again, I think just by nature of...
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing for that. You could say it's almost in the realm of, like, how... Pardon me. Where slasher movies are kind of in the horror realm, but no one would ever call a lot of straight-up slasher movies scary.
Well, see, I don't know. I think so. Well, I look at something like Scream, and that literally was the reason why everyone got caller ID after that movie. And literally, like, that's creepy and scary for the sense that, of all horror movies, I know a lot of people who are fine with watching zombies, vampires, whatever, because they're fake. But
Right.
slashers were creepy because that could happen. Some psycho could decide, I'm going to put on a mask and, torture this babysitter, whatever the case is. So,
All right, fair.
I would definitely, but I would say, to your point, something like, because I just had this debate with someone. You've seen the movie Seven, right?
Yeah.
Some people are like, is that horror? Or is that just a thriller? What he does to the victims is horrible, but it's more of a thriller. It's like a detective thriller, so it's not really horror.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think what really stemmed this is because I remember when we were doing our horror bracket for best horror video game in October,
Doom was high.
Doom was on there because it's obviously a great game, but I remember I had heartburn about putting it on back then, but I'm like, it's not really a horror game. But of course, it's going to get high on our bracket because it's a great game.
Right.
So, in the future, I'm saying it, not horror.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. All right. So, Jim, I'm giving you the harder thing this time.
Yeah, fuck.
Going back to one of our favorite reoccurring bits, overrated, underrated. And for those of you who don't know, what we like to do is take a topic, a game, whatever the case may be. Each one of us takes a position that's overrated or underrated. It has no bearing on our actual opinions of the game, or the subject, and we just try to counter-argue each other. So in this one, Jim, you are overrated, and I am underrated, and we are talking about Doom still. And when I say Doom, I don't mean the series, just mean the first game. So Jim, I'm going to let you get started and tell me, how is Doom overrated? Because we know you hate this game.
Well, Bri, I mean, it's an okay game. It's all right. But what did Doom really do besides throwing monsters that Wolfenstein 3D didn't do before it? It's not like you can dynamically aim up and down in it. You're still just going through some narrowish corridors. All right, maybe it opens up a little. It opens up a tiny bit. But you're still going through corridors. You're still just mowing down things. It's not scary. It's still, I gotta find a stupid fucking key so I can get through the door and get through the next part of the level. It's stuff that it's all been done before. Sure, it's been polished. I'm not going to say you're polishing a turd because Wolfenstein 3D was certainly no turd. But it laid the groundwork for everything that Doom did and that Doom tried to do a little more. Now let's talk about some more of the things that people love so much about Doom. And let's go into the soundtrack. Sure, the soundtrack's great, but that's because all the tracks are ripoffs of already established music. So all the tracks that you love are all ripoffs of Metallica and Slayer and I think some Megadeth and shit like that. So it's easy to make a great soundtrack when you don't have to put any real work into it. And then you even get to other series like, say, Quake that I just talked about. Quake 2, scarier than Doom ever was. Quake 1, a more mythical, kind of added more different gameplay elements, I think it added magic and shit like that. It's been forever since I played it, and not only that, but you can aim up and down. You can aim all over. You can actually fully, truly aim. I would almost even say that for setting and graphics and gameplay, even the Marathon series built on better to the Wolfenstein 3D idea than Doom ever did. Doom was just the one that, kids and nerdy edgelords at the time could go, oh man, this is based in hell and it's so gory. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And, if you want to be a neckbeard nerd in the 90s, then be the neckbeard nerd in the 90s that you want to be. But just don't try and sit here and say that Doom really did anything all that special. Sure, as an overall package, it's good. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, what really did it do?
Okay. Are you done?
I'll stop there.
All right. So, Jim, before I get started, do I need to remind you to not interrupt and be a goddamn gentleman?
No, I will be a gentleman. I will let you say your piece.
All right. And keep in mind, Jim, there will be questions thrown out there. They're rhetorical. Okay?
Okay.
So, Doom, you brought up a lot of great points. It was... How would you call it? You basically said it was a Wolfenstein clone, essentially.
Well, I mean, it was made by the same people.
Yep. So, no one can deny Wolfenstein came out first and kind of laid the groundwork for what Doom is. But I'll go ahead and say, when people think of what was the first car that was ever made, pretty much no one out there is going to tell you that was the car created by Carl Benz. No, everyone's going to think the Ford Model T. You know why? Because he took what some people might have already created, perfected it, mass-produced it, and made it what it is. And the history in most common people's mind, when you're not just Googling it, no one knows Carl Benz. And I give it another 15, 20 years, and shit, probably even today with generations today, people know Doom. A lot of people don't know Wolfenstein, even though they're trying to make a comeback and they've made new games. Not taking anything away from Wolfenstein, but Doom just perfected and essentially, you could argue, is the grandfather of the first-person shooter and what we've come to love as a first-person shooter genre. So, number one, being a game that kind of like Super Mario Brothers did for platforming, and it's not taking away from the Atari platformers, but this did this for first-person shooter. So you defined a whole genre. So check that off as one of the reasons. You talked about the soundtrack, and you brought up another really good point. The soundtrack did use music from heavy metal bands of the time, but you know what? Why fuck with perfection and create something like you would hear on the Sega Genesis? Like, you don't want to do that. So you take something really good and you fit it to your game appropriately. Just like a series, and there's no doubt you can deny this, Jim. You love the Star Wars series. You might not love every single episode, but you love that series. And it's a really great movie. But that did nothing original. It took the Seven Samurai movie, it took stories from the Bible, it took Westerns, and it just combined them all into one space story. If you really look at all the things that were presented there, they've been done before, but they perfected it. And everyone remembers Star Wars and doesn't care that it's an amalgamation of things previously done. You know why? Because it was given to us in a package we can appreciate, much like Doom and that soundtrack. And you talked about the guns. For a guy like you, who I would refer to as pretty easily a simpleton, you like things very simple. You like watching plants grow on your video games. Why you do this, I have no idea. So you should appreciate the aiming mechanic of not aiming up and down. In fact, just like you love GoldenEye when you don't have to aim. Obviously, everyone knows GoldenEye is better when you don't have to aim properly, and that's the way you prefer it, because it's simple and it keeps the action going. Who wants to stop and aim all over the place, especially on those older games, where it wasn't perfected till many systems later, because they knew what they were working with, and they didn't want to fuck with technology that wasn't available to them. So it's debatable to say they perfected the control scheme for a genre they created in the FPS. And I'm not even getting to the fact that you just had arguably one of the goriest games of the time in a time when, all these other games were trying to come out and be the goriest. People knew Doom. And the weapons that were available to you, the monsters you were fighting, they all looked amazing. So there is no doubt this game is underrated. And let's also throw out there, Jim, how can a game that you can beat in 8 seconds, at least the first level, possibly be underrated? People are going to spend 20 years trying to break records for a game. I think there's no chance that game's overrated. But you tell me.
It is.
All right, so I won that one.
God damn it.
So for those of you, when you watch the segment, obviously Jim does not think this game is overrated. But, that's the point of this argument.
Right. It's another one where it's like, it's obviously not overrated, but it's another one of those things where it's like, how do you possibly say it's underrated with how fucking loved it is? So
yeah, it is tough to always call that underrated. But Jim, did you like my one little dig, my few digs I had again there for you?
Oh, you're gonna see what I did when you put this video together.
Which one pissed you off more when I called you?
It was the Genesis one. Of course, it was the Genesis one. It's always the Genesis one.
I had to throw it out there, Jim. I just had to. So, let us know if you're someone out there. I think most of you will probably say underrated, but if you truly think it's overrated, I'd love to hear why. And don't just say if you generally hate the genre and everything, then of course you'll think it. But I would love to hear reasons why you would find Doom overrated. All right, Chambers, you set up the next one, so why don't you do it?
All right, another one of our recurring bits that we have going on here. Fan favorite, and it is which is better. So today we're going to be asking which is better between tabletop gaming or video gaming. And you know what? It's good for this because Brian didn't do a lot of tabletop gaming, but he did do one game that he was completely obsessed over.
Yeah.
So I think he can actually add his 2 cents into this one.
Yeah, so Jim's referring to HeroScape. Admittedly, tabletop gaming was completely foreign to me. When I heard that term back in the day, I strictly thought just atypical Monopoly-style board games. And then I came into HeroScape through our mutual friend Matt, who introduced all of our college buddies to it. And for those of you who don't know, you create your map with 3D pieces, and then you have the actual figures, and then you have stat cards. You roll dice, yada yada yada. So very involved game. A ton of pieces. The setup alone could take, depending on how many people you played with, 2 hours plus. And then that led me into what other tabletop games are out there? And knowing that there's now a whole world out there, I was like, Jesus Christ, it's insane and intense. And it was just a world I never knew nothing about until I played HeroScape. But like all my obsessions, when I get into something, I get into something. So to Jim's point, he's absolutely correct. So if I'm comparing tabletop to video gaming, man, I do absolutely. There's something you get, especially if you get one of the involved games with tabletop gaming, that you'll get a level of commitment and nerdiness is the best way I'm going to describe it, that you can't get with other you can get with other hobbies, but if somebody's going to commit to sitting there and building a map for 2 hours, then they're into the game and they're going to take the shit serious, unless you got random buddies, which we would have from time to time. That would just be like, what the hell are you playing? Okay, I'll try it out. That's both a plus and a downfall for me, because we would have buds that we would get so pissed. We'd be like, take your fucking turn, because a game would take 5 hours because the guy would be like, what am I doing? He would not be paying attention. And now you're like, I just want to finish the game now. It would piss you off royally. And Jim, you know who I'm talking about.
All I have to say is, I can throw myself into this one here. Thank God when we played this game was before the takeoff of smartphones. Thank God.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, so that was one of the things that I think it can be good and bad. Now, if you're hardcore and all your friends are hardcore, you won't get that issue. But I think that nature alone will always limit tabletop games, aside from the perception and the amount of work you have to do. Video games, the ease and availability to pick it up, play, and even if you have buddies, like a lot of our college buddies, we have some friends who moved to Florida, some that moved across the country to Seattle. We have friends literally all over the country, and we're still able to connect and play a game together because of video games. So because of accessibility and obviously the variety of video games, what you can do, I love that. But man, if you want the most in-depth, customizable, and that personal, you do get a different feeling playing something physical next to your buddies. You get much more visceral. Jim always lost, especially if he went against me. But if he would even get a good piece, he's like, I don't even fucking like this. Why do I even get this? It's just gonna go out and die, because it relied on dice rolls, which is one of the reasons why I started getting the nickname Brian Bullshit Quinn, because I would roll 20s abnormally high.
Fucking bullshit.
And Jim would get extra mad because we would get certain pieces, and they would come with specialty dice, and he would always try to say, "You can't use that dice. That dice is bullshit."
This cocksucker would have an army of low tier army, common army pieces. Not even the good ones. He would have the awful ones. And I would have a
Jim,
team.
why don't you equate it to chess pieces so more people know what we're talking about? Say I have a bunch of pawns.
Fine. Brian had a whole team of pawns, and I had a whole team of queens. And my queens would just fall by the wayside, one by one by one by one. Because of bullshit dice rolls. Fuck defense from dice rolls. Just, goddamn it, I don't have enough luck to get away with having to roll for offense and defense.
So there's memories and things you can do with a tabletop game. You'll never get that same feeling with video gaming. I have to go with video gaming, but man, it's a lot tougher for me than I thought it was going to be. It's really close. Because of Jim and I have kids, our friends have kids, everyone's separated. The chances for us to ever do a tabletop game are really slim.
Yeah.
Maybe when my kids are older and I start doing that with them again, that can actually be like a little family thing. We play whatever. But yeah, it's a lot closer than I thought it would be. But for right now, my answer will have to be video gaming, strictly for accessibility and the ease of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the smart answer, and let's be honest here, the right answer is video games because of all the reasons you said, and especially in the advent of online gaming. Just, because here's the thing. Here's the biggest thing I always got from tabletop gaming was, and like I said before in earlier segments, I played Magic tournaments. I played some Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments, and I was obsessed with HeroClix for a good couple years. And I would go to a local comic book shop every week on a Tuesday night to play in, like, the local weekly tournaments. And, like, the memories you get from actually sitting there, spending all week strategizing, trying to make your army just right for the format that's going on there. And whether you're going to a tournament and playing against random people, or you're playing, like we did with Hero Escape with our buddies, it's like, it's the memories and the shit that you talk about and you remember to this day, all these days later. Like, I've had good games in, say, Call of Duty where you you're in the shits and you come back from behind by some crazy amount and you're like, yeah, but it doesn't stick with you. But when you have, for good and for goddamn bad, when you have these memories from tabletop games,
they'll never go away.
They don't go away. And even to expand on this a little further, you have the games out there, because I know you don't have to play with friends. Like, there's places like the Game Workshops chains where the people can go and play like Warhammer together. I think that's the big one there.
Yeah.
And even a memory I have from that is walking in there asking for HeroClix, and they went, "We only play real games here." And I went, "Fuck all of you." Fuck you and fuck Warhammer, you fucking nerds.
Yeah, video game fans get bad rep, but man, those people who do tabletop games are the worst.
They are the hardcore of the hardcores.
Because you know what, Warhammer, that goes back to my customization thing. You can sit there and hand paint every figure, and there's a lot of games. Like Dungeons and Dragons is always the easy go-to. But like,
that's something I always wanted to play, but I never got to. I never got into D&D.
But you can like customize, like my understanding is like you customize like what they're actually able to do as long as everyone agrees to the rules. Like, so you really do make it your own. It's like, think of it like PC mods for tabletop games. Like, you can sit there and do what you want. And that's my point, is like the visceral feeling and the strategy and all those memories. Even if you beat a video game that was super hard, you can just say I beat it, but like the memory is so shared with everyone else that what happens in a tabletop game with a dice roll, especially, it's like that was completely unique to you. There may be other people out there who have a story similar, but that is your story for life. Whereas millions of other people beat Super Mario 3 on the hard, you get my point. Like,
right.
So that's why I'm saying, that's the only reason I'm saying it's so hard to say that video games are better, because that is the easy answer. But for people who do tabletop gaming, I think it's closer than you would think.
And for anyone who says tabletop is better for these reasons, I can't argue with it.
Yeah, I could understand it. Like, I do have buddies actually I work with who still do tabletop game and talk to me about it, and they're still entrenched. And hey, God bless them. They still have groups of friends that they get together on the regular, still do it. If you're able to do that, then I think that probably would be your preference. But if you're like Jim and I or anyone else, and if you never had accessibility or did it, then yeah, you'll never understand. And it's, yeah. But I would say if you're someone out there who genuinely has a good imagination and can get over the fact that you're sitting around building maps and whatever.
You're being a dork. Just embrace it.
Just embrace it. So, yeah. I like that topic, though. Good job, Jim.
Yay! I'm going to roll this one.
But then we roll right into Jim's Terrible Decisions, one of my favorite
Also
segments.
a good idea.
So,
Brian's new favorite.
There was a few topics I was going to throw here, but Jim inspired me. So,
Right, I'm the gift that keeps on giving for this show, all right?
We're going to go back to a lot of previous stuff with this topic.
Brian, games I have lined up for you after we're done Resident Evil, that you could fill almost a year's goddamn worth of this.
So, if you follow our channel, or even if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you probably could see a link to the side, or you see a video that Jim did a hardware review for the N64 biosensor. And before I even get into all that, if you're not familiar, this segment is Jim's Terrible Decisions. I just started it last podcast because he inspired me so strongly.
Already Brian's favorite.
With spending, and it seems to be a lot of people's favorite, Jim.
You had a decent response.
That Jim spent just a stupid amount of money on a terrible game, and we'll get to that. I mean, you can just click on the link and watch it for Hotel Mario. But today, I saw Jim's video, and Jim and I, we talk a lot about like what's coming out, whatever. But I know Jim like does hardware reviews. He does these things for the Yoki brothers or
Yokoi kids,
Yokoi kids. So he'll do like little pet things here and there. And I look at our channel. And I see Jim, what pisses me off so much, and I'm going to put the picture up. We've talked on this channel a lot about one of my bigger annoyances with thumbnails used today by YouTubers is some asshole holding an object in front of them and it kind of has the mouth open thing. Or just like is looking at it with like a raised eyebrow. And Jim does that exact thing. And what pisses me off more is I know he didn't do that just to piss me off. That he genuinely thought this would be a good picture to use for the thumbnail. So he pissed me off inadvertently. And I know he'll take credit like it was planned. But that was my number one, like, okay, what the fuck? And then when you watch a video, and if you watch his video, you should. And if you're a Patreon, you can see the full him gameplaying. The biosensor essentially only works with Tetris for the N64. Is it called Tetris 64?
Brian, not only does it work for just one game on the N64, it only works for one game that's a Japanese exclusive for the N64.
Yes. So,
and that's
Jim,
Tetris 64.
I didn't get to talk to you about this.
No, you did not.
So we're gonna air this shit out here. Right off the bat, super angry that you keep buying these terrible Japanese exclusives for a system that we've discussed multiple times. But how much you pay for that, Jim? How much you pay for Tetris? Wait, when you bought the biosensor, did it come with the Tetris 64 or did you have to buy it separately?
No, I had to buy it separately.
Okay, so give us pricing for both these objects.
40 each.
40 each. And
40 for Tetris 64 complete in box, 40 for the biosensor loose.
All right, and where did you get them from?
eBay.
Okay. Do you think you got hosed a little bit?
I think the investment on the biosensor was not worth it. Tetris 64, solid game. I don't have as many regrets on that one, but the biosensor is a complete piece of crap. But I didn't buy it because I thought it was going to be a cool thing to like use in the future. I bought it because it's something I wanted to talk about for the page. I had to check it out and talk about it.
No, and here's what I'll say to Jim. To his credit, he will find stupid, unique things and want to make a video for it. And I know he is doing for the page, but I also know there's a sick little part of him that like wants to be the guy that has the biosensor.
I will say,
if you see his collection, it's filled with stupid shit like that, which is why he has a TurboGrafx to begin with.
Hey.
But let's get back to what I was just asking you, Jim. So I know you might not fully feel this way, but $40 you think is a good price for a complete in box, right?
For a complete in box for Tetris, yeah.
And I've done enough research where I can say it's reliable. So I'm on price charting, Jim. What do you think they suggest?
Not reliable site.
It's been reliable for me, and it's worked out for me. So I can only talk from personal experience. But what would you suggest they think a complete...
They are probably saying 25.
They're saying 28. So it's not tremendously lower than you, but the point is, it's still lower than you, Jim. And I'm not even going to bother looking at the biosensor because you admitted that was a terrible purchase.
Oh, yeah.
But here's my follow-up question, Jim. And this is now going on, I don't even know how many weeks. Did you get Resident Evil 2 Remake?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Did you get it before or after you got the biosensor?
After. Because after I got the biosensor, just like I had called previously in the podcast, within a month and a half to 2 months, it already had a big price drop. So it went to $40, and that's when I snatched it. Mm-hmm. Because buying new games in this day and age is for suckers.
Uh-huh. Do you think someone who bought a biosensor for the same price of a great game might be a sucker?
Not if I got something truly out of it.
Did you get something truly out of it?
Yeah, I got a video. I got an experience, Brian. I got a deeper lore into the history of video gaming that most people just don't have.
You are equating any experience as a good experience, and we both know we can go back to college days that any experience is not a good experience.
No. I'm throwing this right back in your fucking face. As a guy who's had a shitload of terrible experiences, I can tell you what is a truly terrible experience, and that was not a good one, but it's not truly terrible.
But what I'm saying is, you stop using the excuse saying, well, it's an experience. I got an experience. You son of a bitch. I'm happy you got Resident Evil 2. But the time you spent playing these terrible things, you could have played good games. And you didn't, did you?
I can play good games whenever, Brian.
Exactly. You can play good games whenever. But what do you choose to do at that time, Jim? As this segment would suggest. Because
Tetris 64 is a good game. The attachment was
Stop saying good.
Great game.
Number one.
Solid game of Tetris. Giga Tetris changes up the formula. Bio Tetris. Hey, you know what? You can have always a different experience.
Throw Tetris on any console. Obviously,
it's gonna be good.
It's good.
So there you go. It's a good game.
That is not
Tetris.
the point.
It's a good game.
But my point is, how many different versions of Tetris do you think you have, Jim?
I have 1 and 2 on the Game Boy. I have a random one in the 3DS I got from Five Below that I haven't played. I have one on the Xbox that I paid 50 cents for, and then I have Tetris 64 and Tetris 99, which is free. So 6.
And arguably, I know you're going to argue with me, but you could argue Dr. Mario is just a Tetris like variation.
It's a variation.
Okay, and you probably have other Tetris variations, don't you?
I have Mean Bean Machine.
So my point being that you have enough versions of Tetris, and
does anyone truly have enough versions?
Yeah, they do. And for a system that it's subpar at this point, you're not going to use that much. You had to get us a game that you already had on enough available shit. I'm sure you're going to turn around. And I forget if you just said it. If you did, I apologize. You play that Tetris 99 on Switch, right?
Oh yeah.
So that makes more sense. I won't ever say you getting Tetris 99 is a bad decision because that's a game you can play mobily. It's a great game, and it's an interesting twist on the game.
And it's free.
Other than the stupid-ass biosensor, what twist did Tetris 64 really throw at you, Jim?
Well, Brian, not only was it the first Tetris game to have 4-player multiplayer built into it, you also have Giga Tetris, which gives you gigantic pieces as well as smaller pieces, and it changes up the gameplay there dynamically. And then Bio Tetris you can play even without the sensor, and it would just randomly throw all those wacky pieces that the heart monitor rate's supposed to have at you, so it'll give you pieces and an experience that you wouldn't get with any other Tetris.
Right. So
and then the core of Tetris gameplay is still there and solid as ever.
So, right, it did nothing new, and it was a waste. So Now my question is...
And Brian, what game system library is complete without a game of Tetris, though? Really?
Many. because
Oh, wait, I
they
forgot.
got-
Right, before you
Go
continue.
ahead.
I forgot to include in there that I have Tetris for the CDI.
Of course you do, Jim. Why wouldn't you on a even worse system? I've claimed that you're a shelf collector. And it's for very good reason, because if anyone has ever seen Jim's shelves and you're friends with Jim, and you know his very, how am I going to put this nicely? He's, I won't say he's not allowed to play or doesn't have the time to play, but I'll just throw out he's busy. So if he is playing, he's probably playing a Switch strictly for mobility's sake. And when he does get the time, we're doing the sites, and we usually have to play whatever. He's got some really good games just from the Xbox 360 generation alone that I know he's never even probably opened or put the CD in. And he decides to spend his time and money on games like Tetris 64 when you don't beat games like BioShock. I'll just use that as the easiest example, and one I just know off the top of my head. Because I know if I look through your library, there's going to be a lot more I'm going to be even more pissed off. And it's like, you just don't want to play good games. I think I've come to that assumption that you just like playing bad games and trying to justify that they're still okay. I think this is part of Jim's terrible decisions in life.
No.
Just like you would make very questionable friends in your life, Jim, and you'd support them because why not? I think you do the same thing with games. Yeah, you can't deny it. Exactly.
You might be onto something there in some tangential ways.
Exactly. So why don't you let Daddy guide you in how to play good games? And
No.
I'm almost going to take a page out of our good friend Travis's book. I might have to start recommending you games to play, Jim.
We're stealing his bit now.
I might just you don't need to recommend shit to me because you'll recommend me terrible games. But I need to recommend good games that you have to try before you decide to go off on little ventures and buy more terrible games and more things. And as much as I love you feeding Jim's terrible decisions, we have enough backlog of those with things you've previously done that we can keep going back to. So I don't need you to keep giving it to me.
From a certain point of view, maybe.
From many people's point of view, Jim. So I love your dedication to the page, but I know you would get this biosensor regardless of the page, Jim, and that's what pisses me off.
Actually, if it wasn't for the page, you know what?
Yeah, if you saw that in
I don't
a
think
thrift
I would
shop,
have
you wouldn't be able to
justified.
say no.
I don't think I would have been as gung ho to do it. I've been like, if I would have seen the price tag and been like, I can live without this. But with the price tag, I was like, well, fucking no one's ever talked about this. And
oh, God damn it, Jim.
I will say that the page has not helped my collecting to stymie it. I'll say that.
No, it hasn't. And I'm just waiting for you to get really cool shit that I can get excited about for the page. God damn it, Jim. Instead, you're going to torture me with God knows what. Well, I already know. Right. At a minimum, I know one thing you're going to torture me with for sure because we talked about it the last time. But I can't wait to see what your other games or things are you're going to torture me with.
It's gonna be a fun little well, that worked.
See, you've made so many bad decisions. You're just derping all over the place, Jim.
I derped.
So, listen, many of you, and let me throw this out here. I know a lot of you are friends with Jim who are going to comment on this, especially on Twitter. You don't know Jim like I do, and you know a little bit about him. So if you're going to defend this decision of his, know you're bullshitting yourself. God damn it, Jim.
And look, at the very least, I can say it was, if it wasn't for the page, at least if I would have gotten nothing out of it. Because that thing is a piece of crap.
Okay. Well, at least you're admitting that. That's the only saving grace you have in this situation. You're not trying to do your typical, I'm going to defend it because I own it now.
No. The biosensor is a piece of crap. Tetris 64, good game. Biosensor, piece of crap.
Oh my God, Jim. Stop trying to throw any defense of it out there. Just stop. So, let us know what you guys think below. You son of a bitch. All right. And the last one, Jim, you threw it up there, but it's another reoccurring bit.
Yep.
So I'll let you go ahead and...
All right,
There's not much to discuss, but yeah, go ahead, throw it out there.
Yeah, so it's our last topic for tonight. Recurring bit, as Brian says, cover art. Talking about it. So, recently, I've been getting into, well, not really hard and heavy. I've had a PSP for a couple years now, but I never had a charging cable for it, so it just kind of sat there. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to that whenever. So I recently got a charging cable for it. And one thing I've realized is that there are just so many good compilations on the PSP. Like, I know that it has a really deep library of its own with a lot of unique games, but even if you don't want to go through that kind of hassle, just getting the compilations alone are really good. And one of them is going to be up today with Castlevania, the Dracula X Chronicles. Trying to center this on the screen right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it right now. And obviously, if you're watching the segment, I'm going to put the picture below. Otherwise, try and look at Jim's or Google it if you're listening. So, as the one between the two of us that's more obsessive with Castlevania, I would say I was not familiar with this game, and I'm certainly not familiar with this cover. Looking at it, it's kind of par for the course for a lot of these type of Castlevania games. There's an interesting amount going on. So you have Dracula's face over the front of the castle. You got which Belmont is that?
It's Richter, because it's mainly, so what this is it's a 2.5D remake of Rondo of Blood, which, as you know, a lot of people know, never came out. Well, it came out in the Turbo CD, but it was really rare, really expensive. You had Dracula X on the Super NES, so that's where you get the name from. And then you can unlock a version of Symphony of the Night. Okay. So it's basically Richter.
Okay, so it's Richter, and then what?
Maria?
What's that chick's name?
Marie, yeah.
Marie, yeah. And she's holding what looks to be different types of flowers in her hands.
Flowers and a crucifix in her hand, yeah.
So, okay. The name makes it obvious. I do love the font for Castlevania. They do the moon thing with the C, which is obviously cool. Yeah, I just have a general problem where, like, Dracula, if you didn't know this was a Castlevania game and you got right Castlevania, I would not know this is about Dracula or vampires. And this is that point in the well, not really the point, but this is like that example of Castlevania games that became, not that any of them were super scary or horror, but like it just went down that like more anime Japanese style. And
it all went down the symphony route.
Yes, exactly. And I never, that kind of actually turned me away from the series. And a lot of those games, I know there's a ton of them for the DS and stuff, literally because of the art style of the games, like I'd be kind of like, I'm good. And, you know, even though I love Symphony at Night, those styles games never really came to me. Rondo of Blood, I have played an emulated version of that. So I've never beaten it, but it's a solid game, and I wish they would have stuck with the art style that was more prevalent back then than go with the Symphony of the Night style for this, even though it is a technically remake. So while it's interesting and well done, it's not really my taste.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. Here's the thing. If you don't know anything, actually, it's, unlock Rondo of Blood and you get Symphony or whatever. I forget what. But either way, it's all based around Richter. If you don't know anything about Castlevania or what's going on, you can say it's a well-drawn cover, but it doesn't tell you anything. Yeah. So you have the guy with the whip, you have the scary Dracula face, and you have the chick. So on its own, it's like you said, it's kind of bland. It's par for the course for seemingly every Castlevania game since Symphony of the Night. But solid game collection, but kind of it's a well-drawn but kind of uninteresting cover, I would say.
I just always, like I said, I always have problems with things that are and it's going based off of it has Castlevania. It has a really good following. They don't need to jam it down your throat what's going on because you know. But like, go back to the original Castlevania cover. Go back to Simon's Quest. Go back to like those originals. It was pretty damn obvious you're fighting monsters. You're doing like more action scenes and like one of my, like give him goddamn fangs. Show fangs. Show blood coming out of his mouth. Show something that he's a vampire, not just this boring ass and then a chick holding flowers. Oh, that really makes me want to like. Are we fucking playing a gardening game? I just.
Ooh, started.
I'm damn it. I know I'm being harder on it because it is well done, as we've said now multiple times. But yeah, it's just very boring for a Castlevania game. And that kind of was the theme after Symphony of Night might be a great game, but even that leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want, compare it to the old Castlevania where guy with the whip standing in front of the freaking castle, like, you just know, oh shit, something's going down. This, you're just like, oh, what's this, weeb crap.
Yeah. Even Symphony of Night, the thing I'll give that game credit for is you had at least a cool silhouette of Dracula's castle in the moon with bats flying. And bats signify vampires. This one is just a dude with a goatee, which, once again, I know we all know is Dracula. But come on, man. Fuck. So, well done, but yeah, if I was passing by it and if I really wasn't sure, it would never sell me.
Yep, same here.
Yeah. So
good collection, though.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. That's a game that's not a bad decision, Jim.
Yay!
So, guys,
and I'll never talk about it.
Exactly. You'll never play it. You'll never finish it. You're like, I just have it on my shelf. Now let me go watch plants grow.
I will play it. Probably won't finish it.
So, and guys, if you're hearing that and you're listening to this segment, we're not saying the game's bad. I need to make that clear because the number of times we talk about a game's like soundtrack or whatever, we're like, but the game was
Blah.
Yeah. So let us know what you think of the cover art, guys. And with that, Jim, which did you finish all 3 beers?
Yep. I got to pee like a mofo.
Yeah, so I only finished 2. I assume your favorite is still the chocolate cherry.
Yeah, the chocolate cherry is actually becoming one of my favorite beers just in general. Like, it's such a good beer. Like, you get enough chocolate, you get enough cherry, but you still get that little stout undertone that it's almost like candy, but still being a real beer.
Yeah.
The Perpetual, it's a good IPA, but it's an IPA, and Rolling Rock at this point was just kind of like water after those two.
Exactly. Yeah, and for me, I've had Prima Pills many times. The biggest thing with this is tough because after finishing it, it leaves your mouth really dry.
Looks like you need a Rolling Rock.
I could use a Rolling Rock right now. It's like that bitter dry of like something with it's not filled with hops, but that's what you're left tasting. So it's a easy session beer, but once you stop it, you're going to be like, yeah, shit, I need something else. So not bad. But either way, guys, thank you again. If you're watching, if you're listening, and no matter what platform you're watching us on, if you don't mind, follow the links below. If you're listening to us on iTunes, go over to our YouTube page, subscribe.
And if you're on iTunes as well, please leave a comment or a review. It really helps the feed for it, helps the interaction with it. It'll get more eyes on it, so anything helps.
Yeah, we really would appreciate that, guys. And obviously, if you subscribe to our site, if you just go right onto the right column as soon as you go into our site, you subscribe, you'll always be notified of any time something new comes up for us. So,
yep.
With that, guys, thank you once again, and cheers.
Cheers.